Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is a special regular session of the South Kingstown Planning Board. The date is Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. The time is now 2 minutes past 7. The first item on our agenda is roll call. Joe Murphy.
Here.
Susan Axelrod.
Here.
Paul Jordan.
Here.
Robin Pothier. Elizabeth Karp.
Here.
Peter DiStefano is absent, and Maria Mack is here. Our next agenda item is subdivision and land development projects. We have nothing on the consent agenda this evening. So our first agenda item is a public hearing, major multi-household land development project change to a previously approved plan for Magnolia Lane. Jamie, if you could enlighten us to what's going on with this project. We have just today received a drawing relative to the project and a second sheet that shows some landscape additions.
Madam Chair, John D'Agostino is here as the applicant also tonight, but just a quick overview. The original approved plan that was reviewed and ultimately voted on by the planning board showed a driveway a little more northeast than is being proposed this evening. That driveway in the original location unfortunately conflicted with a set transformer box. In essence, the utility company set a transformer box in the travel lane for the proposed driveway. It was also fiber for telecommunications as well as power. So Mr. D'Agostino worked with his engineer, discussed the matter with public service and the engineering department for the town, and supplemented the application with a new plan. Since it was a previously approved plan, multi-household development for 2 duplexes, as the administrative officer, it was my suggestion that I would not approve it as the AO, that it, in my view, would require an amendment to a previously approved plan that the planning board vetted. So you have an application before you, subject of a public hearing, to slide the driveway approximately 20 feet to the northeast. So closer to Lot 8, which Mr. D'Agostino owned and had developed. He has also supplemented the landscaping on the north side of Magnolia Lane and at the corner of the proposed new driveway location.
Can you show us the original plan? Is that available?
Mr. Parker will pull that up.
So as you can see here, the driveway originally went north and then extended to the right here, closer to the detention basin. I believe that utility box was placed somewhere right around here, right in the middle of the driveway. So they were forced to move it to the right. Forced to shift it this way. Is that me?
Certainly. Before we begin with any questions, is there anyone representing the applicant for this?
Hi, good evening. My name is David Russo. I'm a professional engineer with DePrete Engineering. Mr. Rabbit gave a good general summary of all the changes. I don't really have much to add. There was a comment at TRC about making sure there was a shoulder there for the relocation of the drainage, which we did. As he stated, we added additional landscape buffering on the corner across the street. And other than that, there was really not much significant changes with this driveway relocation.
Thank you. Couple questions. One is, does this relocation have any impact on the stormwater calculations or anything to mitigate that? Have there been any changes with regard to that?
It was so minimal that it didn't have an impact on it.
We also have a landscape plan before us that is unfortunately, although it's apparent that more plant material has been added, it's not quite legible at this scale. Just wondering if somebody could go over what plantings have been made. They're obviously in the...
They're the corner ones are the white spruces.
Yes, exactly. The only thing that I can see is that you have Kuzas because of the symbol that you for Cornus Kuza, but it's, if you want to try reading that, it's a little...
The rest of the landscaping is the same landscape design that we had prior. The landscape architect, just tucked it in instead of going straight across because the driveway was further west. She just kind of curled it around that corner in that area.
So the plant list is the same?
That planting schedule, I don't believe she changed it significantly. I think she just curved it really just to go with the shape of the driveway.
Well, it doesn't look as though, it looks as though there is more plant material, which is a good thing. And certainly, it appears that there might be things that aren't necessarily on the original plant schedule if you compare it to the original vertical area. So it would just be nice to know what those, Jamie, can you zoom in on this? You know, if you want us to review a landscape plan, we need to be able to
read. I don't have a
read
copy
it.
of it.
So there's 3 large areas, and contained within those large
So-
areas are,
We have a Heritage River Birch. We have 3 of those. We have a Little Bunny Fountain Grass, some of those in there. I mean, are there particular plants you're interested in?
I want to
or-
know what they are, if you expect.
Can I just read them all down, like the list then? Okay. Coosa Dogwood, White Spruce, Valley White Azalea.
Oh, I'm not talking about just reading through the plant list. I'm talking about letting us know what is in these 3 areas specifically, so we know what's planted there.
What 3 areas are you speaking about? Across the street?
No. These 3 areas appear to have multiple plantings added, but it's impossible to read what they are at this scale.
What, I mean, I can,
See those 3 circular areas?
okay.
And then you have, yeah, and you have 3 red dots within, there we go. Okay, now we can see what they are.
Yeah, I mean, most of those are the Little Bunny Fountain Grass. Blue Fescue, so it's grasses.
Grasses.
And then there's some daylilies in there. There are,
I'm sorry, could you clarify, that circle, that's not a tree canopy, that's just a bed that's got 3 grasses on it? Like that, the 3BN, is that underneath the canopy of a big tree, or is that a big bed with 3 little grasses in the middle?
that is a Heritage River Birch, and she's calling out 3 of them, so I'm gonna make the, assumption that's 1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry, I misread what a BN was, I apologize.
Normally, you would see that kind of a circle showing existing tree canopy, and then you would have the plantings internal to that, but it's just, the spacing is off, but we get the idea. So it's 3 river birches. Fountain grass. comments from folks on this. Go ahead.
Since you've moved the driveway so far over from the retention basin, you now have, I guess, just grass between the driveway and that retention basin. Would you consider putting some sort of plant material on that other side of the driveway, since there is now space there along the top of that retention basin?
With all the utilities there, we'd prefer not to, just for access to the sewer, the water, if we ever had to get in there. Prefer not to put plantings or heavy plantings over that area.
Okay. And then can I ask you also about the space across the street on the corner? So it looks like these plantings across the street are new.
Correct.
Was there resolution with the owner of that property about the property line and there was some erosion and fire hydrant that was elevated above the street level, and how has that all been resolved?
John D'Agostino, co-owner of J. Thomas. That corner has not been resolved yet. Have been talking, that was brought up at the TRC meeting, part of one of the final stipulations before the top coat and the road is accepted. There is a few things that need to be serviced out there and addressed, and that will be addressed with the top coat in final approval of the road.
So I haven't driven by for a while, but the last time I did, it appeared that the neighbor's property abruptly dropped off to the ground level.
Correct.
Are you putting in fill, like where along that profile would you install trees? Like how would
So-
what's the mechanics of that?
So based on the last TRC meeting, we spoke with Rich Bourbonnais, who wanted to come out and be involved in the decision with the hydrant and the regrading of that corner and the planting of the new proposed trees. So that meeting has not happened yet, but will happen prior to the finalization of the road and being accepted.
Have you had any contact with that homeowner about what you're planning on that corner, or what sort of screening would be ideal for them?
We have not. Some suggestions were brought up by a board member at the TRC meeting, and the landscape architect had called out some plants, but as we said in the TRC meeting, we're open to suggestions from neighbors, the board, and staff.
I think I'd like to suggest that before this is finalized on that corner, that there be a conversation with the homeowners on that corner.
Yeah, that was brought up at TRC as well. Again, I spoke to the director about meeting out there, talking about the corner with the homeowners, discussing the grading around the hydrant. That's all been brought up at the TRC meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, you must be aware of this.
But I did have a few comments on that. At TRC, we reviewed the transformer location,
Yes.
which is next to the sanitary sewer that's shown on, I don't know if you can show it on the plan, the box next to the sanitary sewer. Is that on this plan? Yes, it's that, that box there. When we went out in the field and looked at that transformer, it actually seemed like it was a lot closer to the new location of that driveway entrance. We asked to get that transformer box field located and accurately shown on the plan for the first portion of the comments. So I have additional comments, but if you'd like to.
Make sure you're speaking into the mic so that,
That has been field located, and the new driveway is outside the location of the transformer in the field.
Okay, but there was also another utility that was next to the transformer on the other side. I think it was a Verizon cable box or communication utility as well. So there was a few things in that area that you're showing.
I mean, that's the main transformer. I'm not sure of the other utilities or the handholds. I mean, I'm assuming they're right around that area of where we have the transformer and the coax cable.
There was another box right next to the transformer.
It's right next to it, though. Yeah, so I mean, the transformer's been located, that unit's been located.
Okay, well, it looked like it was gonna be very close to that driveway entrance, and I did have concerns with that, with traffic, coming so close to that. The second issue that I'm seeing on this is the location of the, some of the plantings along the intersection, particularly near the water services that are coming in. You've got trees, it looks like, that are on top of that water service. We're gonna wanna have those plantings away from any type of utilities.
Is there a regulation for that? Those are just the canopies just drawn on there. I mean, the planting would be in the shoulder of the road. I mean, typically, don't you have street trees planted on the side of your roads in subdivisions?
We normally do, but not on top of utilities.
It's not on top of it, though, it's in the shoulder.
I'm talking about the, we can hand that back.
Or are you talking about inside the site, Mark? Like, inside the site? Oh,
With the new plantings there. I don't know what type of plantings you're showing, but I see a lot of plantings on top of that utility.
we can, I mean, we'd have to put like a gap there to bring it in. I think we kept,
Just need to superimpose that onto the.
yeah,
landscape plan.
and I don't think we have any large trees on that, but I know what you're saying. We can move those around if you want, Mark. You're talking about the service.
The service,
Yeah, yeah.
correct. And, right. Yes, right in there. Right. Right. And my last concern was with the riprap area that's collecting the water and bringing it to the flared inlet. I was hoping to see that area moved into the property a bit and away from that intersection, because you're gonna have cars rounding that turn, and it could possibly be a hazard, only a 3-foot shoulder along that edge of pavement.
What distance would you be looking for? Off shoulder. We can move it in. There's no issue moving it in. I'm just asking what you.
I would like to see it moved away from the roadway a bit, because again, a 3-foot shoulder, you're gonna have the pavement edge breaking off, being that much, not that much protection in the shoulder area.
What distance would you find acceptable? 10 feet? I don't know.
10 feet would
10
be
feet.
more sufficient.
We don't have an issue moving that in. So move that in and just put a aisle for where the water services come in.
Absolutely.
Anything else from staff? Board members? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Good evening, Barbara Lima, 70 Oak Street. My property is the one that is where the 4 new white spruces are shown, and we're very happy that Mr. D'Agostino is considering making some improvements to the area, because that is the area of erosion. However, we are still concerned about having the retention wall put in that corner, because we have lost over the last year even more of our, that corner. It just keeps, every time it rains, we lose more of our corner. And the other thing is the ones that are on, to the left, up there you have the 2 that are on Magnolia as it goes from the east to the west, and then you have 2 that go from Magnolia going from south to north. I'm not sure there's room there, because what's there right now is a very steep, and again, that's our back property, a very steep wall with rocks in it. They put those in there when they excavated so closely to keep the soil from eroding even further, because that's even a bigger drop than on the other side. So I'm not sure those trees are going to fit, because right now there's just a rock kind of wall there. I don't think there's space for planting trees. But I'm not sure that the people who did the design came out to look at the property. The other question I have is, or comment, I guess, is that there's supposed to be a swale, see Lot 8? There's supposed to be a swale along Magnolia on her side there of the property, and that swale is supposed to be 2 feet wide, 1 foot deep, and a 30-degree slope. Unfortunately, that swale has yet to be put in, and even more unfortunately is Miss Harder has some beautiful lawn there now where, there should be a swale. And my question is, that swale is supposed to be put in, and I think Rich said at the TRC, sooner rather than later. As I said, there's right now grass growing there. But my question is, where is that swale going to drain? Is it going to drain into that thing that's number 37 there? I guess that's a question for Mr. Russo. So those are my concerns, the continuing erosion of my property, need for the retaining wall, appreciation for getting some plantings along there, and wondering, when is that swale ever going to happen? And another question too is, we still have the original silt fence that was put up in 3 years ago. It's getting pretty raggedy right now. And is that the responsibility? It's their silt fence, it's their responsibility to take it down when the construction is done? So okay. That was my question, because the silt fence isn't too functional right now. It's on the ground, and it's actually shredding and killing, not killing, that's an exaggeration. It's wrapping itself, the shreds of it are wrapping itself around my arborvitae in the back. I just noticed that this weekend. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Russo, can you give us any clarification on when that swell might be installed, and anything else that you can do to clarify the concerns that have been raised?
I think all the concerns she raised would be part of that final review with Rich Bourbonnais and the street acceptance, and I've dealt with the town of South Kingstown, and they'll have an extensive checklist that we'll have to meet before the road is accepted, so that'll all be looked at with the town engineer.
Thank you. And Mark, are you okay with Mr. Russo's answers?
Yes, I am.
Jamie?
Madam Chair, listening to the questions, the answers, and the comments from the public, I would have 6 recommended conditions.
Oh, sorry. Let me just let staff make comments, and then you can come right up and speak. Jamie?
So item number 1 would be that the final grading plan be submitted and reviewed by the AO in consultation with the Director of Public Service. Item number 2, that the final curvature of the proposed driveways, including turning templates for fire apparatus, be submitted and reviewed by the AO in consultation with the Director of Public Service and the Fire Marshal. There was initial discussion about that curvature being at a 45 to 60 degree angle, and the planning department would prefer that that be more teed up so that it would act as a traffic calming feature versus being able to carry speed from Magnolia Lane onto the driveway and vice versa. Item number 3 is final landscape plan showing utilities shall be submitted and reviewed and approved by AO in consultation with the Director of Public Service. That's primarily necessary to negate potential utility conflicts as pointed out by engineering. Number 4 is that the RCP, flared end RCP, which is reinforced concrete pipe, and detention area be relocated to the south, no less than 10 feet from the edge of curve, reviewed by AO in consultation with the Director of Public Service. Number 5, that the swale on the south side, final design to be reviewed by the AO in consultation with the Director of Public Service. And number 6 is to remove the old reference to pipe and curb cut to Lot 8 from Magnolia Lane. You can just see it in the middle of the photo. Just above Lot 8, there's 2 dark black lines, or thick black lines above the Lot 8 and below E in Lane. There's an old curb cut that was originally proposed in culverts. They chose to access off of the primary street and are no longer utilizing or proposing that curb cut. So in my view, it should be removed from any plans, so there's no confusion in the future of whether or not the applicant is supposed to install pipes under a driveway that's never intended to be built. Those are my 6 items.
Other members of the public?
Hello, this is Claudia Majowski. I and my husband live on Lot 5, as it's noted, 24 Magnolia Lane. I just wanted to speak in support of the approval for this change, given that we've lived there just about a year now, and our property abuts the retention pond. We've, obviously have had several significant storms over the last year, and it appears to us and the neighbors that the retention pond appears to be working as intended. So I would expect that moving a non-pervious driveway 20 feet further plus would only help that situation in terms of ensuring that retention pond drainage, and also as a homeowner, which will eventually be our responsibility, works as intended. Also, recently, my husband and I spent some significant money on that side of the retention pond that abuts our home to put in some landscaping and plantings so that to ensure that it will also help continue that good drainage into the retention pond. As John mentioned, the builder mentioned at the last TRC meeting, they offered to plant some additional trees along our neighbor's property across the street, which I think is great. It was talked about in terms of any light pollution coming from cars leaving with the driveway being in a different direction. And that's great. I have to say, I would say that given that it's going to be further up on Magnolia Lane and it comes down, it could be on a little bit of more of an incline. So, lights could hit our home as well. However, I'm not concerned about it. We have window treatments. It should be fine. And I think that all, in terms of the neighbors on Magnolia Lane, we are very interested in trying to get this moved forward so that we can actually have this road and all of the finish work completed, as our neighbors do as well, on Oak Street to, have a full finished development, particularly when these other homes are finished, which should be soon. So I would hope that the board would consider our thoughts on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from board members? Susan?
So Jenny, when you did your conditions, I'm sorry, was there one that addressed the shrubs across the street? Or does that need to be a condition about resolving with the neighbor, the shrubs and the grading and all that good stuff?
That was proposed condition number 3, that a final landscape plan showing the utilities, potential conflicts for that, be reviewed and approved by the AO in consultation with Public Service Director. So yes,
In relation to
all landscaping.
utilities? Okay. Does the neighbor have any kind of involvement in a
You
conversation?
cannot delegate away approval authority to an abutting property owner.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, comments? Would someone like to make a motion that, yes. I just want to be sure that you have 6 criteria, Jamie? And that's sufficient, that includes all of Mark's concerns.
I believe so.
So would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing unless anyone else wishes to speak?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Is that-
I think Joe and I both said it at the same time.
Motion from Joe, second from Paul. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Then we have a motion to approve the proposed change to a previously approved plan to modify and change the configuration of the driveway servicing the property from the originally approved design. This includes 6 specific criteria, conditions as outlined by Jamie Rabbit. Is there anyone who would like to make that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion again from Joe, second from Paul. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you. Next agenda item, conceptual master plan decision, major land development project, South County Commons, District 5 apartments. As board members will note, we received information from staff relative to findings and potential for a motion. However, we did not receive it until today. Some of us who have jobs did not see this until late this afternoon. So I would just like to give everyone an opportunity, if they have not yet read through the motion, to read through the motion, as well as the fact that Jamie has given us a revised motion. And after we read through this, I want to hear from everybody about their thoughts, because the findings and the concerns outlined in Jamie's memo do not necessarily constitute what the board may feel is either adequately inclusive and may not be in alignment with the board's feeling as far as the conclusion of these findings. So I think the best thing to do would be to read through this, get everyone's thoughts and comments on the record, and then move forward with these items. So let's take a few minutes to read through this. And then, Jamie, at some point, we will want to hear from you about what the differences are between what you emailed us today and what you've given us this evening.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
would you want to just take a 10 or 15-minute recess
I think that's a great
so
idea.
that you don't have to worry about mics or?
Sure. Let's do that. Is everyone fine with that? Yes. The board will take a 10 to 15-minute recess. Okay, I don't have